Okay, hello everyone and welcome. I'm Christine Kepnick. I work with the CoC. Kelly is out for a conference this week, so I'm just gonna facilitate this meeting for her. Like I said, we do have a pretty full agenda today. We've got two great presentations for you all. That's gonna be the focus, but I have a few updates that Kelly wanted me to share, and then we will go ahead and get started with our first presentation. And again, if you could just please put your name and agency in the chat, we would appreciate it. The first thing we wanted to touch on is that our monthly CoC sponsored trainings. So the next one that is happening is on August 17th, is a special training. So it's going to take place from 2 to 5 p.m. And it's based on Housing First implementation by Dr. Sam Sambaris, kind of known as the father of Housing First. This training is being provided by the City of Greeley in support of their new Foundations Housing Program. But all CoC partners are welcome if they're interested in attending. A couple details. So this training will be in person in Greeley. It's definitely geared towards providers and you must register ahead of time. Details will be on our website and also be sent out via email with the notes, but I can put the registration link in the chat as well.
Christine, what's the date again?
Yes, August 17th from 2 to 5 p.m. And the next major update is that the CoC program Notice of Funding Opportunity was released. So HUD has not released the exact amount of the CoC bonus new project funds or DV project funds available for the Northern Colorado Continuum of Care, but there will be roughly $99,000 in CoC bonus funds and $113 in DV bonus funds. But again, we have not gotten the exact numbers. All organizations that intend to renew their current CoC funded project or intend to apply for a new CoC project must submit a notice of intent to apply form by next Thursday, July 27th at 5 p.m. I'm also going to include the link to the form, but a reminder, it is also on the website. And if there are any questions, please reach out to Kelly. And I will drop Kelly's email in the chat as well. Okay. I know that was brief. Any questions about anything I just covered? Again, anything specific to the NOFO should probably go directly to Kelly. But okay. Well, we're a few minutes ahead of schedule, actually, but Jordan Lamport from Hunger Free Colorado is here to give a presentation on SNAP policy changes and Hunger Free Colorado, the organization. So Jordan, I'm going to go ahead and pass it to you if you don't mind introducing yourself, and I'll go ahead and make you co-host as well. So hopefully you can share your screen, but I have your slides just in case.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Christine. And thank you everybody for having me today. My name is Jordan Lamport. I use he, him pronouns, and I am with Hunger Free Colorado. Okay, I just allowed it. So I think I can share that now. And I'm with Hunger Free Colorado, and I work as the Applied Policy Coordinator with the team. And I am really excited to be here in this space today to hopefully share about our organization, what we do, and also update everybody in this space about SNAP policy changes, as this has been a pretty rapidly evolving space over the last year, and we'd love to share what we are seeing just on our team and what we know kind of from a policy perspective as well. So I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen and try to get through this in 30 minutes. All right. Visible to folks? Great.
Yes.
And then I saw that she hopped on, and so I just wanted to also mention Alyssa Hardy, who's the director of Hunger Free Colorado. She's sitting in today. And as for these meetings going forward, we did talk with Kelly, and are really excited to be joining these general membership meetings to keep learning about what's going on in Northern Colorado. So with that, titled today's presentation, Who We Are, and SNAP Pandemic to Present, like Christine said, to give kind of an overview of the work that we do at Hunger Free, and also to kind of give a status update and state of SNAP overview. All right, so let's see. So first off, thanks for welcoming us to this space. I kind of already gave that intro. I'll go on. So who is Hunger Free Colorado? Our mission statement: Hunger Free Colorado connects people to food resources to meet existing needs, and to drive policy, systems, and social change to end hunger. In pursuit of a world and a state where every Coloradan has equitable access to the food that they need to reach their full potential. And so within that, we have a variety of strategies that we work on in order to make sure that the communities that we work with are finding access to the food they need, getting on SNAP, and getting over any barriers that might be in the way to that access. So it's really kind of a whole system approach, and through working with policymakers, systems, administrators, society at large, and community, and really through collaboration, we believe that hunger can be eradicated in Colorado because it's solvable, and no one deserves to go hungry in this day and age. So just to put some faces to the org, this is a whole of organization photo that we took earlier this year, showing off all these cool swaggy hoodies. And yeah, so it's largely composed of our client services department, which engages in SNAP outreach, but also shown is our development team, our policy team, leadership, as well as organizing team. So as far as initiatives, what does Hunger Free actually do? Within client services, we have really three main strategies to tackle our vision and to get towards our vision. And the first is through a hotline and a referral program. So as a SNAP outreach program manager, Hunger Free runs a bilingual and statewide hotline, which takes cold calls and referrals from community partners and medical providers. So that's to say that we can really, assist people in signing up for SNAP over the phone. We have a third-party license to what's called Peak Pro, which allows us to actually submit applications through Peak, and get folks that we're working with documents and copy of applications without them actually having to go through Peak. We run a mobile outreach program that runs basically an on-site food stamp application assistance program at various clinics and community partners, primarily in Denver Metro. However, we're starting to expand slowly. And then where Hunger Free's access kind of leaves off is where our SNAP-P partners take that on. And so SNAP-Ps is an acronym that stands for Partners Engaging in Application Services. And essentially, through this program, we train additional organizations on our enrollment practices. We host Peak Pro licensing training so that people feel really comfortable with navigating the system, and also fund these organizations as subrecipients for the work that we do. Not within our client service department is our policy and advocacy work, but it is very tied to what we hear from community members. And in my role especially, I act kind of as a liaison between what we hear through our SNAP application work, and in channeling that to our policy team to really make change that is important for our communities. So just a little bit more about kind of the work that centers client services. It's really all about connection. We are working with low-income families and individuals who are in search of resources, food resources, benefits, assistance. And so the key to a really successful interaction is, awareness, knowledge, really the technical side of the application, and system navigation. As I'm sure a lot of people on this call know, and just within the work that you all do, there are many barriers that come up, even when it comes to just getting a SNAP application in or finding a food pantry that's in your area. And so within that, a lot of what I do is around organizing and trying to, organize feedback that we're getting, and really see where trends and barriers show up. And so with that, the barriers that come up within SNAP outreach really fall into three main buckets: awareness and knowledge, desire and fear, ability and systems. So just to talk quickly about awareness and knowledge, what are the resources available to me? Where can I go to apply? What am I missing in terms of knowing that this program exists out there and actually receiving the benefit? There's misinformation on eligibility rules. So, that shows up a lot in our work as it relates to like mixed status households, when we're working with households who may have citizens in the household as well as non-citizens, and trying to clarify, eligibility rules for these cases where maybe it's not so clear cut. Other barriers like that would fall under desire and fear are more related to stigma, to applying to public benefits, fear about how your participation in a program might affect other realms of your life, like immigration. And something that we're seeing currently, kind of with the state of everything, is like a sense that benefit levels are they're not high enough for me to want to go through the whole process of applying, or it's just too much of a burden for the actual benefit that I'm going to receive. And then the last bucket is really ability and systems. And so that's really where a lot of our technical assistance is propped up to support overcoming these barriers through, direct peak assistance, so that folks who are having trouble with peak can have somebody else help them with that directly over the phone or in person. Through a hotline, we can tackle a lot of transportation and mobility challenges that people face. And then, procedural error issues, trying to help people understand the correspondences that they may be receiving from their county about their benefits, and just generally trying to make the eligibility screening process as consistent with actually, the technician process, where county technicians are determining benefits. Okay, so really quickly, this is just kind of a slide on where HFC currently intersects with the NOFO CoC. And so as of March 2023, we partnered with the Loveland Resource Center in Larimer County to co-locate monthly at the center to help residents sign up for SNAP and get connected with local food resources. So this is really where I was connected to Dylan Cruz, who I'm not seeing here on the call, but who manages the Loveland Resource Center. And she in turn got me connected with Kelly Pryor. And really that was how a lot of these connections were made. And we just saw a lot of overlap in the work that we're doing and the priorities of the CoC. And so from this outreach site, we were able to get connected, and was really the connection point for joining these meetings. All right, so now kind of transitioning from, what Hunger Free does, what our work is about, to SNAP, other food and nutrition programs, and really how they've changed over recent years due to the public health emergency. So this slide is really just listing kind of the major changes that happened with the pandemic to SNAP. So at the start of the pandemic, there was a temporary increase of 15% for recipients. That went through July 2021. There was also the provision for maximum emergency allotments, or max allotments as they're sometimes referred to, which boosted SNAP participants benefit amounts to the maximum that their household could receive, and really supported families who may have prior to the pandemic only received, a minimum benefit. So this really upped benefit levels. There were a handful of waivers and flexibilities that were federal waivers and flexibilities that Colorado took up to try and reduce some of the friction from just like administrative processes. So the ABOD time limit, which you may have heard of, you may not have, but is basically a rule in SNAP policy that says if you're an able-bodied adult without dependents, which is what ABOD stands for, you can only receive SNAP for 3 months within a 3-year time period. And that's like a longstanding feature of SNAP, but it was waived during the pandemic, which was really important because, as we know, just so much of the workforce changed instantly at that time. Student requirements had changed as a result to the American Rescue Plan and the CARES Act, so that it was easier for students to access SNAP during this period. And then there were also a handful of waivers related to the interview process that SNAP participants go through in order to get approved. And a lot of counties in Colorado took up those waivers to make it easier for folks to quickly get benefits without having that additional interview step. And then lastly, PEBT was created. And so that was like the first time we had seen this PEBT program. And essentially PEBT stands for Pandemic EBT, and was a way to help kids in school who participate in the NSLP program to receive those lunch benefits during the summer, like on an EBT style card, so that even though they weren't able to be in, school getting the meals, like during remote learning, you could get a quasi EBT card that would reflect the amount that you would receive in free and reduced lunch. So with that said, those were kind of the main interventions that we saw and have been seeing, over the last 3 years. And to kind of give you an idea of how this impacted actual benefit levels, I have a nice little chart here talking about the average monthly SNAP benefit. So it's, pre-pandemic average benefit for one, it's about $121. When all the pandemic aid was fully in place by 2021, and that includes like emergency allotments, the 15% increase. The average SNAP benefit went all the way up to $240, so a really significant increase towards helping support families and their purchasing power. By October 2021, the 15% increase that existed had expired. So that went down, but we actually saw at that time benefits still went up because there was a reevaluation in the Thrifty Food Plan. And so for those who don't know, the SNAP benefits amounts, those are calculated based off of various food plans that exist that the USDA curates. And the Thrifty Food Plan is the lowest cost food plan that exists that can help individuals meet their nutritious needs, but is cost effective. And so that was reevaluated in 2021 for the first time since its inception. And because of that reevaluation to take into account current eating habits, SNAP is adjusted for inflation each year, but these changes were more to reflect what people are eating nowadays and how that changes the cost of the food plan. That benefit went up. And then post-pandemic, the state that we're currently in, where emergency allotments have expired, the public health emergency has expired, we're seeing that average really dip down to lower amounts. So kind of takes this arc, but a positive in that is that the Thrifty Food Plan reevaluation did at least raise benefit levels slightly from what they were pre-pandemic. All right, I won't spend too much time on this, but this is just I thought this was interesting, just showing kind of the scale to which the COVID response was. And I'm sure a lot of people have been talking about this and we've had conversation about this a lot over the last few years, but it was a really massive federal intervention, almost 5 times the level of the intervention of the Great Recession. And so it was just a massive amount of funds that were really supporting programs like SNAP through the various means that I was just talking about. All right, so now kind of centering ourselves in this post-pandemic world, just want to highlight a few important changes that have happened since policy and legislative changes that have happened since January 2023. So the first one was the Consolidated Appropriations Act of 2023, which was signed in December of last year. And essentially what it did is it uncoupled the emergency allotments from the PHE, allowing them to end before the public health emergency officially ended. And so that's why we saw this year, emergency allotments were ended in March, and the public health emergency didn't end until May. And so that was, we heard a lot of feedback about how that felt abrupt for people, how that kind of put people on their toes. It made just buying food more difficult on a timeline that wasn't necessarily expected. And then the other thing that the Consolidated Appropriations Act did was it provided for the creation of a permanent summer EBT program. So basically it reallocated all those funds that would have been going to maximum allotments, and it used it to support a summer EBT program, which is still in the works in terms of its implementation in Colorado, but Hunger Free is definitely on that in terms of, you know, watching its implementation. It can be a really good resource going forward for those who are interested. The next impactful change was the actual official end of the PHE, which I said ended on May 11th. This kind of finalized all of the COVID-19 assistance that was out there, and it triggered the unwinding of a lot of program flexibilities that had been in place. And I'll talk a little bit more about what those are. It says such as there. So there's another slide on that. The next impactful change was the Fiscal Responsibility Act of 2023. And this was commonly known as kind of the debt ceiling agreement, which was like top of headlines for really, really long time this year. And essentially some negative kind of consequences from that bit of legislation resulted, but essentially how it impacted SNAP was it increased the age limit for able-bodied adults without dependents from 49 to 54. So once this is fully implemented in Colorado, older individuals up to 54 years old will be held to kind of a working standard, which was not the case before that was enacted. So that's not super positive. However, a positive that was in the debt ceiling agreement was that it expanded work exemptions for specific populations like veterans, folks experiencing homelessness, and then youth aging out of foster care. And then the last kind of really notable thing that took place here in Colorado was there was a supplemental appropriation for $14 million that went to supporting food pantries and food banks. And this was redirected funds from CDHS, Colorado Department of Human Services, to really directly support direct food providers in the wake of all of these SNAP benefits going away. And so that has been huge. All right, still do about 15 minutes on time, Christine?
Yes, you're doing,
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Just wanted to check there. All right, so I've mentioned it a few times, but just wanted to make sure everybody is aware of what it actually means when I'm talking about emergency allotments, because it was really a huge part of our work over the last few years. But essentially from March 2022 to February of this year, SNAP households received an emergency allotment that was on top of their regular benefit. So this was either bringing households up to the maximum, or if your household was already receiving the maximum benefit, it would add $95 to that. So it was really increasing purchasing power for families, but it was a temporary, it was a temporary feature due to the COVID relief. And now that it's ending and over, we're starting to face kind of the reality of what SNAP actually provides households, and starting to hear really a lot of feedback around benefit adequacy, kind of going back to that point I was talking on, the desire and fear as it relates to barriers. Like, folks are starting to see, like, I only qualify for $30 a month, and start to hear some negative feedback about that decrease, which is totally understandable. But just to kind of set the stage for where we're at. Another interesting thing was that beneficiaries received 2 payments during max allotments. So that was something that has been a source of confusion for people, as now that's being reverted back to only 1 monthly payment. But yeah, the chart here is basically showing per household size, the left figure being what the maximum benefit would be, and then plus 95. Yeah, so that would show kind of the range of maximum benefits during the pandemic. So now that max allotments are no more, in SNAP outreach, things like SNAP deductions are really important, because deductions now are the primary way that households can maximize their benefit. So within the SNAP benefit calculation, which is on the next slide, there are a handful. These are all the deductions on this slide that can help lower your net income, essentially, so that you qualify for a higher benefit. So whereas during the pandemic, it may have been a little less important, because if you just qualified for a benefit, you were just automatically maxed. You're maxed out to the maximum benefit. But now, where you can really qualify for a range of benefits, it's really important for folks to know all of the different deductions that are available to them, so that they can maximize their SNAP benefits. And just to kind of put that into a formula, this is how you kind of determine net income for SNAP. And so it's basically gross income minus these deductions, and then you plug your net income into a benefit calculator to see if you actually qualify for a benefit. And so, as I mentioned, to maximize deductions, you need to lower your net income. And the best way to do that is to make sure that you're reporting all applicable deductions. Okay. Really quickly, just want to talk a little bit more about the ABOD time limit. And so ABOD stands for Able-Bodied Adults Without Dependents. And the time limit, as I mentioned, is a specific feature of SNAP that says that if you are in ABOD, if you're under that classification, you can only receive SNAP for 3 months in a 3-year period if you're not meeting the work requirement. So this is kind of prompted us, given that this was waived during the pandemic and is now coming back and has returned as of July 1st, this is really prompting us in the SNAP outreach space to think more about how we can connect folks to work opportunities if they're seeking them. So how can we better connect people to employment first in their county? How can we better connect them with third-party providers who are doing the same work as employment first? And in an effort to make sure that if people still need to be receiving the benefit, they're able to meet the work requirement in order to not be subject to this time limit. So for students, as I mentioned, there were also some flexibilities during the pandemic to make it easier for students to get on SNAP. These are changing as a result of the end of the public health emergency. And they're a little bit more subtle changes, and the student population is definitely a little bit smaller, but it's significant in that if you are now going forward, you need to be enrolled in work study in order to meet the work requirement for students, whereas during the pandemic, you just had to be eligible for work study. And so that's like a slight distinction where now folks who were eligible for work study but may not be actually participating in a work study program, they would have to, find some type of work study or work opportunity in order to qualify. And then the other change is that if you have an EFC value of $0 on your FAFSA, you're going to now be required to meet those additional work requirements, given that that was another change is during the pandemic. If you could show that you had an EFC contribution of 0, that allowed you to satisfy the requirement. So just quickly a little bit on additional resources, just to support people in the with the end of the pandemic and meeting food needs. CDHS created a IVR system, like an automated line where SNAP participants can call in both English and Spanish to find details out about their case. So this is like a new feature that was rolled out to really kind of mitigate some of the increases in call volume that were expected as a result of the end of the PHE. And so this is like an automated line that you can call into, provide a little bit of personal identifying information, and basically get these updates on your SNAP case. And so we've heard some really positive feedback about just its accessibility. And so the line is there. There's the Everyday Eats program, which used to be known as CSFP, Commodity Supplemental Food Program. And this is a federal program that provides support to older adults, 60 plus, in the form of like a monthly food box. So this can really help individuals who may, especially older individuals who, it was kind of a population that was more impacted by the ending of the emergency allotments, because there was a huge Social Security COLA increase, like the biggest of the history of the program. And so people started receiving more in Social Security, which in turn lowered the SNAP benefit amount. And that, on top of max allotments going away, older adults are, largely receiving less funds now than they were a few months ago. And so this Everyday Eats program, it's also income-based and age-based, but it could really help folks that you might be working with who have additional food needs. Just wanted to put the end of EA landing page here in case you have not seen it. This is a material by CDHS, which just has a lot of good information about what I'm talking about here today. As I mentioned, there's Employment First, which promotes long-term self-sufficiency and independence for SNAP participants by connecting them with work opportunities. And so this is, like I said, with ABOD changes looming, this can be a really important resource for folks who are, one, trying to get back into the workforce, and two, possibly trying to meet a SNAP work requirement. And then two final resources which might be of help is 211 United Way. Great spot to go for general resources, food resources, navigation assistance, and just to shout out the Hunger Free Colorado Food Finder tool, which is on our website and can help you find food resources in your area just based on zip code. All right, I'm going to try to zoom through these final slides here because I'm getting close. But on top of our client service department, we also have a specific policy and advocacy department, I should say organizing department, and they work on a handful of initiatives in addition to the work that we do directly with SNAP to ensure that Coloradans have equitable access to nutritious food. And a few of those initiatives this year and longstanding have been healthy school meals for all in Colorado. So with the passing of Proposition FF last year on the ballot, healthy school meals for all is now a reality in Colorado and can now be implemented essentially. And so Hunger Free's organizing team is really at the forefront of how this is going to be implemented across the state so that students are able to access a free meal in school. Farm Bill 2023, that's another huge thing that's at the forefront of a lot of our policy work. If you don't know, the Farm Bill is a massive piece of legislation, over like 12 titles. And the reauthorization of SNAP falls under the nutrition title. And so it's a huge focus for organizations like ours to be pushing the needle and to be fighting for just improvements in the program at this time. And so I have another slide here that goes over kind of our specific priorities. There's the Colorado Food Pantry Assistance Grant. Like I said, we're really focused on how these ABOD changes are affecting people. And so we're really looking into solutions and remedies. And then public charge, if you don't know, is another thing that exists within the realm of immigration and is basically kind of a statement for legal permanent residence that says, yeah, there are certain situations where you could be subject to public charge, which just means that an immigration officer could deem you to not be able to like get your citizenship or something like that. And there's a lot of confusion in communities about how public charge relates to SNAP. And so a lot of our work is about dispelling myths about the fact that no nutrition programs are subject to the public charge test when it comes to adjusting your immigration status, and really trying to make sure that we're messaging the right way so that these unnecessary barriers don't exist. So really quickly, Hunger Free's Farm Bill 2023 priorities: ensure adequate benefit levels, end time limits on SNAP eligibility, improve SNAP access for low-income college students, eliminate SNAP policies that disproportionately harm immigrant communities, protect SNAP participants by ensuring they have the same protections to private consumers if their benefits are stolen, and a continued investment in SNAP outreach, which is really important in a state like Colorado, which is county administered and just has a lot of complexity to it. So, and then on the right side, you just have a few of the market bills that we are tracking as an organization that would help to achieve these priorities. And if you want to read more, there are links there that you can refer to or reach out, please, either one. And then just a real quick example of kind of our policy work as it relates to Farm Bill and just overall objectives. There's an interesting clause in the SNAP rules and regulations around hot food prohibition. And so that's all that to say is that if you receive SNAP benefits, you can't actually buy hot meals. So you couldn't go to a grocery store and buy like a rotisserie chicken or a hot soup. And this really disproportionately impacts people who don't have the means to cook their own food, like cook food, or who don't have access to maybe a kitchen, but are still on SNAP. And, you know, it's really, I see it as kind of a nutrition equity issue, because if you're not able to prepare the food that you can buy with SNAP, then you're not really able to, you know, get the full nutrition out of it. And so this hot food prohibition disproportionately impacts people without this type of access. And so Senator Bennett's office, which Hunger Free Colorado had been working with to educate, especially around hot foods, recently introduced a bill that would basically eliminate the hot foods provision. And this is an example of one of the things that we connected with Kelly over, like how can we spread the messaging that, you know, this is a possibility. And I believe we sent her a flyer that was distributed in some of the shelters and a part of the CoC, so that community members could kind of give their input on this prohibition. And if you're interested in giving your input, there is a link here, and I believe the slides should be shared out, where you can go and just kind of give your piece on what you think of hot foods and their relation to SNAP. Also, if you're interested in just kind of connecting with us more, we have a few ways that you can do that. The first would be to sign up for our advocacy alerts or our mailing list. The first two, the mailing list and advocacy alerts, are probably going to be a little bit more organizationally geared for providers. And so if you're interested in staying up to date with legislation changes, new policies, anything like that, or I guess legislations that we're really excited about or policies we're excited about, I would say sign up to those. We send them out very frequently. And then the last one is it actually a client-facing newsletter? So if anybody on this call is working with clients or SNAP participants directly who are interested in just having kind of a monthly touch base point for updates around SNAP, send me an email and we'd love to add them to the list so that we can share more broadly that information. And then that's pretty much it. So 9:45, but got a little tangled up there. So that's pretty much it. I guess I had a little bit of extra time, but here are some context that I'd love for you to keep in mind. Our SNAP policy team, really any questions about the SNAP policy changes that I discussed today, I would go send an email to Anya or Carmen on our policy team. If you have questions about this work that we're doing in client services, or if you're interested in talking more about collaboration, any of that stuff, please send either Alyssa or myself an email. And then on the right side here is just some updated information about our food resource hotline. So it has hours, the number that you can call, and then just a little bit of specific information about what is offered. So yeah, with that, thank you all. It's really great presenting today. And if you have any questions, always available by email. I'm not sure if we have time this second. Looks like we have to kind of switch over to another presentation, but always welcome to hear from you. So thanks.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Jordan. We really appreciate it. It's a very thorough presentation, and we'll make sure, like I said, this is being recorded, and I'll share out the slides as well, so you all will have access to the links and the contact information. But yeah, just really appreciate Jordan, you and Alyssa joining today. Feel free to stay on if you want, but we understand if you need to leave as well. So thank you.
Well, thanks so much.
We're going to go ahead and move into our next presentation. It's on strengthening permanent supportive housing, strategic partnerships with police and co-responders. We have Annie Hill, Brenna Rush, and Daniel Covey here today to present. So I'll allow you all to introduce yourselves and get started. And just let me know if you all need to make you a co-host or who that should be, and I'm happy to do that.
Thank you. I'll go ahead and try and share my screen here for the presentation.
Oh, I'll make you a co-host right now.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. All right. Are we good there?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. All right, well, hello, everybody. My name is Brenna Rush, and I work with Housing Catalyst. I am the Permanent Supportive Housing Clinical Manager, and I'm here today with some of my great partners and coworkers to present to you a presentation that we gave at the Corporation for Supportive Housing Conference in Philadelphia this year. We chose to speak about how we created a strategic partnership with our local police force and specifically our mental health response team, and how that has positively impacted both of our organizations. I'll let my other co-hosts introduce themselves. Daniel, do you want to start?
Sure. Thank you, Brenna. My name is Daniel Covey. I'm the Permanent Supportive Housing Program Manager for Housing Catalyst, and I'm grateful to be able to present with you today. Stephanie, do you want to go next?
Certainly. Hi, everybody. My name is Stephanie Williams, and I am the clinical supervisor for the UC Health co-responders that serve Fort Collins Police Services and Colorado State University.
And I'm Sergeant Annie Hill, and I'm with the Fort Collins Police Department. I'm currently the sergeant over our homeless outreach and proactive engagement team, but was on the mental health response team as one of the, I guess, founding members when we got the officers dedicated full-time to just responding to mental health with the clinicians.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead and go to the next slide here.
All right, so I imagine many of you are familiar with Housing Catalyst and our permanent supportive housing programs. So I'm just going to give a very brief high-level overview. So Housing Catalyst was established in 1971. We're a mission-driven real estate developer that designs, builds, and serves a range of low to middle income communities in northern Colorado. We're a quasi-governmental entity and we're governed by a board of commissioners, but not part of the city government itself. We are also the largest affordable housing developer and property manager in Fort Collins. So Mason Place and Red Tail Ponds, pictured here, are both permanent supportive housing programs with 60 units each. Both have a 24/7 staffing approach and a very strong resident services department to support residents to escape homelessness and then to build a life for themselves. And if we want to go to the next slide, you can see some pictures of what the inside of Red Tail Ponds looks like, as well as on the next slide, you'll see a little bit about Mason Place.
And I think I'd like to highlight here, we started some of our partnerships with Fort Collins Police Services early on in the design. We used trauma-informed design, and we also used their knowledge on policing through environmental design to create spaces that just kind of naturally are designed to decrease any criminal activity and things like that. They're just safer designs.
Wonderful. So at Housing Catalyst, we're honored to serve as the housing authority, which means that we administer the vouchers. We have an internal property operations department and property management services, and we provide a lot of the on-site services. The beauty of that is, we're able to really surround residents with great support, and it provides very strong communication within our agency. And so part of the presentation today is around how do we build and maintain partnerships with wonderful organizations in the community like Fort Collins Police Services.
I'll hand it off to Stephanie and Annie to talk about their side of this.
Yeah. So Fort Collins Police Services actually started their co-responder program back in 2018. And at that point in time, it was just a fledgling program with a single clinician that we were just kind of trying to figure out how to best offer this service in the community. Over time, through gathering data and getting informed opinions from the community, that type of thing, we were able to grow our team to now 4 clinicians and 4 officers for Fort Collins Police Services, in addition to a sergeant of the team, as well as a clinician over at Colorado State University, which is actually the first university, one of the first 3 universities in the nation to have a co-responder program. The goal of the mental health response team is that by combining a licensed behavioral health provider and an officer to reduce the number of individuals that are being unnecessarily transported to the emergency department, being cited or arrested. Annie, what would you add to that?
Yeah, I think it was really important when we shifted in 2020. Or I think it was actually almost end of 2020, beginning of 2021, because prior to that, we had Stephanie was the sole co-responder for the agency, and she was kind of hopping in with different officers, going to all the calls and trying to address mental health from that respect. But having officers, and there it started with 2 of us, Officer Bland and I, having dedicated officers to just respond to those mental health calls and putting a clinician on the scene to any call that sort of had that underlying mental health nexus was really, I think, one of the best moves we made. So we had this dedicated effort, and it was just a really good response from the community, and we couldn't have obviously done that without our community partners. And this is why, I mean, this has been such a great relationship with Housing Catalyst and our PSH staff.
One thing I will quickly add to that is that when we had just clinicians that were kind of riding around and partnering with officers, it was great. It was helpful. We had an idea as to how to navigate the legal system. However, so often these behavioral health calls involve some type of a potential criminal component, at least at first blush. And so by integrating officers into our team more closely, we've actually been able to divert a far larger number of individuals from citations and or arrests. Because people like Annie have these great relationships with district attorneys, and they understand how to navigate these systems in a way that clinicians simply don't. And so by having them, it's actually allowed us to increase the use of officer discretion, increase their understanding of the different things they might be seeing in the field and ways to respond to that a little bit differently. With that, what we find with our team is that about 85% of our contacts are not at risk for any kind of an outcome of citation, arrest, or going to the hospital.
So I think with if you wanted to go back one slide, Brenna, Really what our goals were, not some people, there was this accountability factor. They were not maintaining their medications. Family members would call us and say there's something wrong with my loved one or my child, and this is not normal. We really need your help. And we had to, in some cases, hold people accountable by charging them criminally. In one circumstance, we had a male at CSU kind of around that age where they start to, and this is information that Stephanie always enlightens me with in the car, where they start to develop those signs of schizophrenia. He had believed his roommate was trying to break into his bedroom. Well, when he sees his roommate outside the patio, he starts throwing bottles at the roommates, thinking they're after him. It was definitely symptomatic of his mental health. And the roommates they felt assaulted, they felt harassed, they were really scared. So we had to hold him accountable in that respect. However, because we have this really good relationship with our DA's office, we have interagency program, and Stephanie's able to recognize these signs of organic mental illness. We referred him to our with the program that Summit Zone actually created, I think, through the DA's office, our mental health diversion program. And so getting him directed and referred over to mental health diversion was really huge, because it was that holistic approach. Like, we had to hold him accountable, and we wanted to get him the help he needed. And he was far removed from his family, being a student at CSU. So we could make those referrals, and we continue to maintain those relationships. Our mental health team does. With the DA's office, with mental health court, wellness court, mental health diversion, and those types of things. And we also wanted to create a collaboration with our community. It's really important that for them to understand, where the clinicians are coming, where the cops are coming from, and kind of what the parameters are within policing and this clinical work. And we try not to put everybody on a hold or give everybody charges. We're trying to problem solve without having to go down that road. Anything else, Stephanie, that I missed?
You bring up a great point. I mean, we are incredibly intentional with when we do actually initiate some type of justice involvement for someone, or a hold. I mean, because for most people, those things are not the things that they need. I mean, it's not appropriate for most people to be accessing appropriate care through jails or through hospital emergency departments. So we certainly recognize that, and in partnering together, we're able to address both sides of that. I think the other piece is that in many ways, we kind of thought, well, maybe co-responders can kind of do this with a little bit of collaboration from officers, but not that much. But the thing is that we have individuals in the community with severe and persistent mental illness that are not able to remember when to get to appointments. They don't have the support or the structure to really be successful out there. And so sometimes through this repeated contact with us, and sometimes through that justice involvement, we're actually able to get them the help and care they need. Oftentimes with that justice involvement, it's a deferred sentence type of a deal. So if you successfully complete treatment, then the charges are dropped, and it's kind of like no foul, no harm. So just wanted to add that in as well. So with our program, we've got a few different facets of our program. One of those is our Familiar Faces program. And this is essentially the identification and follow-up with individuals that have elevated needs in our community. What I mean by that are those individuals that have higher rates of calls to 911 and or visits to the emergency department. And what our team does is we try to identify these individuals as soon as we can and engage in some type of proactive prevention efforts. What that might look like is proactively going out, trying to find them, get them resourced before the next crisis occurs. It can also be in the moment, doing our best to be available when there is a crisis so that we can give them a good continuity of care throughout the entire process. And then the last piece is our post-vention efforts. So basically a three-pronged approach to this. And essentially with that, that's continued follow-up with the individual and recognizing that we are not the best posed to help a lot of these people. We have these amazing community partners, many of them in this room today, that are much better suited to help with those needs. So we will make an effort to really get them connected to the appropriate resources and really act as that bridge and kind of let it go from there. And then that last piece is our community partnerships. This is perhaps the biggest thing that has made our program so successful and a huge aspect of what we're going to be talking about today. We're willing to lean into and have those difficult conversations around policing and the intersectionality of behavioral health and that really tough kind of socio-political space that we're in with all these things that have happened across our nation. And I think it's in the ability to sit down, have those conversations, look for commonalities and build bridges that has really made us successful. Annie, would you add anything to that?
No, just like with our Familiar Faces program and identifying those people that we're constantly coming into contact with. We've made it a point and we're continuing this model, but getting those interagency release of information signed, because we need to be able to communicate with our community partners, whether it's Summit Stone, whoever's on the interagency, UC Health, like being able to share that, because Stephanie can only share information in the moment of a crisis. So we want to provide ongoing support in the continuum of care for that individual and getting those releases signed. And these are a lot of our individuals who end up in permanent supportive housing because their needs are very high.
Yep.
So as we're all aware, there's a lot of critical and negative news stories about police. And, a lot of these are based in real challenges that the police is working on. But especially as it relates to people of color and people experiencing homelessness, these issues can be very close to our hearts and our communities. So we acknowledge and appreciate this difficult truth. And yet we really have found that engagement and creating close partnerships and communication with our law enforcement has led to, really powerfully good outcomes. So understanding there's this temptation to distance ourselves from police, we've really met with police, talked to them, tried to understand, how can we best work together? How can we collaborate? How can we understand where they're coming from and share, for us, the permanent supportive housing model? I think we've really been able to come to some very good understanding that's allowed us to, engage with residents and situations that are very complicated, but because the co-responder model is very practical and trauma-informed, it very much aligns with the work that we're doing. So, just repeating, this trust and understanding that we've built has really allowed us to, create this partnership, and it's been a very beneficial thing for staff and residents in our programs.
So again, some reasons why you might want to create a partnership or get closer with your local police force is, as the clinical manager, having a strong relationship with the police force has really a lot of benefits from my perspective and my experience. When residents come into housing after exiting homelessness, they can often deteriorate, which is kind of the opposite of what you would think would happen. But there's a period of deterioration that can happen. And in that period, it's often a big crisis. And a lot of crisis calls can come from that, because moving into housing can kind of open Pandora's box of traumas and history and all the things that were staying quiet while they were experiencing homelessness in order to survive. And then it just comes exploding out. And so in order to de-escalate and manage some of those crisis events, it does require police to help us de-escalate, keep a scene safe, keep our staff, residents, everyone safe, and oftentimes transportation to that higher level of care in a safe way. If you don't have this partnership, the calls can start to be really frustrating and chaotic for everyone involved. They get long, they're frustrating, the communication is frustrating, and it ultimately ends up hurting the person in crisis the most, because really we want a quick call to the right level of care, de-escalate as quickly as possible, get everyone safe again. So with this strong relationship, we have quick, efficient calls. The residents are very familiar with the mental health response team and the officers that respond to our area. And we'll talk a little bit more about that later. But when I go to them and I say, okay, I think we need to call Stephanie or Annie or co-response, let's just talk to Chris. They know who that is, and it doesn't feel so scary to call in police because they know who's coming into the call. And so it really has helped us stabilize our buildings as they open, to have this relationship.
And Brenna, if I might add on to that, I think it's an
Please.
excellent opportunity for what we call a corrective emotional experience, right? How many of the community members that we serve have had negative interactions with officers in the past? And what is the likelihood of them continuing or potentially having some type of future contact with officers? if we have an opportunity to start building those relationships at trust for them to understand kind of what a police contact can look like and should look like and what they can also expect of their officers, that empowers the individual and it empowers the officer to provide that better level of care and for that patient to better understand how to interact with the officers to get the desired outcome that they're looking for. I think that's the biggest piece, is that when we attempt to sometimes protect our patients or our community members from the negative outcomes that sometimes behaviors lead to, it doesn't necessarily speak to their best interest. What are we setting them up for in the long run?
Yep. And I think this is over to you, Annie and Stephanie, about what has been your experience and the benefits of creating a strong partnership with permanent supportive housing.
I think for us, it's very similar. We want calls to go smoothly. We don't want to use force. We don't want to come in heavy-handed. We want to have that smooth handoff and have somebody cooperative, and we want to have that compassionate relationship with people who in our community. And these are people that we've got to know over the years, these community members, because they have been homeless and they have been in mental health crises in the past. It's just been invaluable for them, for all of the PSH staff, just to allow us in and allow us to continue to better ourselves as a police force. I think so we understand that police officers have fallen short across the nation and fallen short of community expectations, and we don't want that here. We want to continue to evolve and be better. So for Daniel, Brenna, and all the staff, and just to let us come in and say hi, it doesn't make it this big episode when police do respond. It's just like, hey, Annie, and you walk in and it's no big deal. It creates just a really calm environment, and not everybody goes into crisis when they see the police. I just very much appreciate it, and I can't state that enough.
I think it's been amazing from a clinical perspective, because when Annie and I go over to, whether it's Mason Place or Redtail, especially with Mason Place, just because it's so open and everybody kind of knows what's going on all the time, people will come out. They're like, oh my gosh, Annie's here. She's got friends over there. So it's really cool to see. In many ways, I think she actually maybe has a better relationship with the residents than some of our clinicians do. And it's no fault of the clinicians, but I think it's the residents really appreciate having somebody in a position of authority like an officer that they can go to. And the number of times I've seen them come up to Annie and, oh my gosh, how are you doing? And just wanting to give her an update or asking questions or asking for support. Seriously, like the number of calls she gets to her direct cell phone from people, I'm like, this is incredible, out of trust and that kind of thing it's so cool to see as a clinician, especially as a forensic therapist that has really dug into the justice side of the world. To see the relationships that they have built is, nothing short of amazing. And it truly speaks to us putting our community members before ourselves.
I think a big thing that we have noticed, and I'll give you an example. We had a case, we've been able to reduce the amount of criminal charges because a lot of the issues that do come up in permanent supportive housing, the staff are handling in-house. Like, we never see those. Officers probably don't realize the multitude of issues that the staff can just mitigate, de-escalate, and get involved with before it becomes a criminal issue, because we know that people are working through things. And I was on night shift as a supervisor just before I was assigned to the homeless outreach team, and I had an officer who worked midnight shift, and he wasn't really super familiar with Redtail or Mason Place. And he came to me one night and he's like, I have this case, and the individual reported a burglary. So that's a felony. So he reported a burglary to his apartment at Redtail Ponds. And the officer asked, he's like, we have a suspect. We know who did it. He's like, am I gonna have to write a search warrant now for this apartment to get this property back? And we're trying to work through it. And I was like, here's the deal. I'm like, why don't you just reach out to the staff? I gave him Daniel's direct cell phone number and email. I was like, reach out to the staff. I was like, I guarantee they're going to be able to help you with this. And I hold off on the search warrant, just talk to the staff first. So a couple days later, he comes to me and he's like, Annie, you're not going to believe this. I got this email. And he reads the email to me, and it was like, great news. The thief apologized. You no longer need to press charges. You can close your case. And it was like done deal. I was like, see, this is how you avoid having to charge somebody with a felony, because people are working through a lot of stuff. And if the victim was made whole, we don't need to pursue that. And Daniel can kind of give you the other side, because it's also like really interesting once I heard the other side of the story.
Yes, thank you. So, I mean, from our perspective, we, heard about this, and then I made a call to the resident who was seen on camera taking this TV, and I just chatted with him. And because we have that relationship, and he understands where we're coming from, he said, "Oh, I thought he was, basically had moved out." And then once we made it clear that, even if that was the case, that wouldn't be acceptable, and he said, "Okay, I'll just bring the TV back." So the next day he brings the TV, and the victim in this case and the gentleman who took the TV ended up hugging and saying it was all good. So I love that, with the relationships in place, it really doesn't take, a lot of intervention. We can just say to people, "Hey, let's do the right thing." And I wanted to add a little bit more. I think, Annie and the team's efforts to create all these positive interactions really is part of the magic. It's really part of what allows this to be so successful and starts to change people's perspectives about their relationship with the police. So if we can go to the next slide. So how did we create this partnership? So Red Tail Ponds opened in 2015, and even before we opened up, we were really trying to open up communication with the police, and the police were very excited to partner with us to try to create spaces that were safe and would minimize likelihood for criminal activity. And then through that conversation, it began to grow and develop, and we had an officer who was very connected and would come and talk with the residents, do Q&A and coffee. We ended up starting to do an annual police barbecue, and the police would come and barbecue up some food for the residents. And it was a really great way for residents and police officers to just kind of be together and, to be able to be relaxed and just be people and ask questions. And so this picture you're looking at is a picture from, I think it was 2021. It was 22, I'm sorry, but this is at Mason Place, obviously. And so this was the police barbecue, and you can see there was great participation from residents and police. So over the years, we've had a lot of different ways in which we've worked to bring police officers into our communities, really open up communication. We've requested training from police. We've been able to provide training in many different ways. And so you can really see there's this reciprocal relationship in which we have, a lot of respect, and that's allowed us to get to where we're at today.
I think part of what Daniel touched on was the cross training. And that has been a big part of our partnership, is providing training to each other about our areas of expertise. So police have invited us in to help train on what is permanent supportive housing. When you come to a call at our sites, like, what is this? What is the theory behind it? What is housing first? What is trauma-informed care? Like, all of these things we've been able to come in and talk about and help them better understand this population and the work that we're trying to do. And then vice versa, we've had them come in and teach us, when you're calling 911, what's the best way to communicate what you need to get the response that you want. Training on our panic buttons, training on how to keep a scene safe and yourself safe. Like, it's just been really amazing to have that collaboration. And then even just on the calls, it might seem that having a co-response clinician and myself as a clinician on the same call would be redundant, but it really helps us be able to brainstorm and work with each other about, okay, what are we seeing? What do you know about this person? Outside perspective, and we can come to a really good answer and response for the client. I mean, I even did this week on a tough call, and having that support and that communication to just be like, all right, what are we going to do? It felt really supportive to me, and I think it was really helpful for everyone on the call as well. Any other thoughts on the training?
Yeah, I think it's also great. Like if we do have it's pretty rare that we'll have like a really big call where police are coming and somebody is escalated to the point where, they either have a weapon. I mean, those are really rare. But even if it's small, no matter however, like small or big, we can communicate and we can get the perspective of Housing Catalyst or permanent supportive housing staff, and then give the perspective of the police and debrief calls so we can ultimately come up with, what's the best outcome? How do we progress, or how do we all evolve moving forward? And because there sometimes can be really strong feelings one way or the other, depending on your area of expertise. And we want to understand each other because that's how we all become better and provide the best service. It's also really nice, just this relationship, on a day-to-day basis, we'll have routine or repeat calls from one person. And if I know this person's, they have an ROI, this is an issue, instead of having the police go out every single time this individual calls, I can send an email to Brenna to follow up, because that would be the best, having that consistent point of contact rather than the area officer responding if co-response isn't available. So it's really streamlines our approach and just minimizes the amount of work that we are putting into something that's not necessary. We want to have Brenna have that constant point until she can do the handoff if needed to us.
I've touched on this a little bit, but part of my work when I first came into this position in 2021 was to create a strong relationship with the mental health response team, because we knew we were going to need it, and it needed to be a strong partnership. So that's one of the first things that I did. And as a result, we've noticed quite a few benefits from it and outcomes. So one of those is fewer calls for EMS, police services, fire, all of those things, because having an on-site clinician within PSH, I am able to manage some of those calls that would usually go to the mental health response team or 911 calls. And so it frees up our emergency responders to be with the rest of our community as well. And then there's shorter calls. And I think I touched on this earlier, is that having myself embedded with it, when they call, a lot of it has been managed. And most of the time when I call them in, it's because I need them transported to a higher level of care and I need the extra support or insight to safely help the resident. And then really, it's just a lot of communication. If I know that going into a weekend, I have a resident that's really struggling with their mental health and I expect mental health response team to be contacted, I'll email them, let them know all of the information that I can share, and give them a heads up so that they know going into it what they need to know. And it's, those small things like that, those courtesies to your partners can really help the partnership. We were really intentional about building the partnership, maintaining the partnership. This didn't happen by accident. We continue to be very intentional about this. Stephanie, do you have anything else before we go to the...
I would just say that it was really helpful for us to have conversations around, because the reality is these can sometimes be some of the most dangerous calls for people to respond to. And so it's no surprise, the use of forces can sometimes end up on these things, but it's having those conversations and building that trust. Like, we know whenever, Brenna's calling us, we know that she's got a solid hold because she, writes the holds the same way that we do. We all understand kind of parameters that we have to work within. And so we're squared away when we get on scene. And then she also understands too, when there's situations where officers may have no discretion and must press charges, or she also understands times when maybe they won't press a contact or force a contact because they want to try and keep things safe. And they recognize that maybe they're not the best person in that moment, even though maybe people are feeling uncomfortable, but maybe not necessarily unsafe. So having those conversations around the parameters that we each work within, the fact that the officers need to know that they are going to have a good hold when they get on scene, that they can trust and they know is completely filled out and valid. And then Brenna also knowing that, her residents are in good hands with these officers and they're going to take into account the totality of the circumstances. But we understand those limitations, the liabilities that we each have to be aware of. when working in this space. And I think that has reduced a lot of those tense calls where it's like, gosh, you just don't understand what I'm trying to tell you, or why are you doing that? And it's because we just had those conversations and worked through it.
Yeah, I have one quick story on that. We had this call for service where citizens will often call in if somebody's acting out of the norm for them and they feel uncomfortable. And that doesn't mean a police officer needs to go, but they will call the police. So we had an individual, I know he lives at Mason Place. He's walking down Horsetooth. He's acting like he's talking nonsensical and acting a little bit bizarre, but not doing anything wrong. So I took the call. Instead of us going and contacting him and potentially further escalating him, I called Brenna. This is a known individual that we have with our interagency. And I asked Brenna, I was like, hey, so-and-so is walking down the street. Like, this is his behavior. Is he just trying to cool off? Or do you think we need to go contact him? And she's like, nope, trying to cool off. Just, let him be unless something else, changes. And so that's nice to have that direction too, because if I can just call her and not create a bigger situation that needs to be created, it's just a safer outcome for everybody. And we can avoid having to, create something that's not actually there. So this is, I don't know if any of you guys have heard Dallas' story. He did give us permission to openly share this, and he's a really big advocate for unhoused and people experiencing homelessness, as he was previously homeless himself. We've got to know Dallas over the years from living on the streets, and continue to stay in touch with him as he has been housed. His story is just incredible, and he does such a good job telling it. I'm sure many of you are familiar with him because of his active role and how he's wanting to get more involved within the community. So much that he put himself out there and he presented to our entire police academy this fall and just did a phenomenal job. I'm so incredibly just proud of him, and he has put in so much work. And I think we all are just feeling really, grateful for him, and how much he really admires the staff at Housing Catalyst, and he'll talk about that, but he really did. I mean, he, as you all know, he puts in all the work, and it took him and his inner willpower to get to where he is today. So this was a little podcast that we did. This is a little snippet of it, and just allows him to share his story. So it looks like they're trying to get this all figured out with playing. I can't hear the audio yet, but I know Dallas has offered up, and maybe this group, I know he is probably already engaged with the continuum of care, and but he wants to continue that. So if you guys ever find a capacity for him to help out or volunteer, or even how great would it be to have paid speaking events for Dallas? I know he's if you ever have anything else, he loves to be involved. So
I think some background is important here though, Annie, because I mean, the number of calls that we had with him before he was housed, I mean, it was multiple times a day we were going out. And I mean, he would get out of the hospital, he would walk down to Safeway, we'd have more issues, we'd bring him back to the hospital, and it was just literally this revolving door. And it's so cool to see him go from this point of, being homeless and really struggling to now, achieving and maintaining sobriety, staying housed, and now being an excellent peer for other people.
yeah, he I pulled the calls for service, and he had 67 contacts from police the year prior to being housed at Mason Place. And since then since he got out of treatment and has maintained sobriety, we have had 0 calls for service. And the only time I ever talked to Dallas is if I'm just going to visit with him or go pick him up. Like we met for coffee one day and we went to Starbucks and he's like, I've never been to Starbucks before. I was like, oh my gosh, you have, I'm like, we got to get this. And it's great to have him come over to the PD and share his story. It's just, I think it's really enlightening. So when officers go out and they take these calls, I hope they always, see Dallas and the progress he's made, because that's what people are capable of. And we have to put people first every single time, even if we are responding 67 times to that person, like they need help just like everybody else. Did we get the volume to work, Brenna? Perfect. We'll stop talking then.
My name is Annie Hill. I'm here today with Jean and Dallas. Really excited to chat.
Can you
with
turn it
guys
up a
about
little bit,
really important
possible?
Story, and I think it's a lot of great information to share, and something that hopefully, even if it reaches one person, is a crucial point in someone's life, because we know today was a crucial point in Dallas's life, and if we can share his story and help somebody, I think that's really important. I'll start by just introducing you guys, or have you introduce yourselves, I should say. Jean?
So I'm Jean Nedig. I am the property manager at Mason Place, permanent supportive housing that is owned and operated by Housing Catalyst here in Fort Collins.
I'm Dallas Watson, and I'm a resident of Mason Place Apartments. I've been there about 13 months now.
Nice,
So
nice.
I've been there quite a while.
I remember a few different times where I saw Dallas and he was just having a rough time, and I'll let Dallas share his story, but I knew that Dallas was struggling and had a history of substance use, and we had a few different encounters with Dallas, and I think one of them was a little bit more of a highlight than the others. But I'll let Dallas talk about that.
As it went along, I finally got into treatment, and the day I was going to go in treatment, I was just going to go ahead and skip out. And I had gotten so low with using the meth, the alcohol. I was drinking hand sanitizer. I was drinking embalming fluid. And I was waking up at 1 o'clock every night and just going through hell. And I'd had to get to the liquor store or something first thing in the morning because I was shaking so bad. But I wasn't sleeping, and I just given up. And I had given up to the point where I had planned, okay, I can't take this hell anymore. And I had planned when I came back that night, when I woke up at 1 like I always did, shoot it up and just go to sleep, and that be it. And I've gotten that low. I had no hope for ever getting better, no hope for anything. And Jean saw me, and she was so happy. And she said, well, today's your big day, Dallas. And I go, well, yeah. And she goes, go back in your apartment, wait, and I'll come and get you when they come and show up. So I went back to my apartment. I drank the rest of the embalming fluid I had, and now I drank a half a bottle of hand sanitizer. And she came, she got me, and I was out of it, and she walked me out to the Suburban. And when we got there, she said, Dallas, I believe in you. Just please make it through the rehab. So I went to rehab, and I was in a wheelchair for the first week. And about a week before I got out, I thought, I'm not going to make it. It's going to be like, wow, I was in hurt and stir. And I got out, and I got back to Mason Place, was having my hair cut, and Jean came in, and she was crying, and she said, Dallas, I'll go ahead and make you dinner. I want you to be okay. I believe in you. And then right then I thought, you know, here's a person that believed in me when I didn't believe in myself, never gave up on me, always showed me kindness when I was at my worst. And here she is. She wants me to make it. So I sat there and I swore to God, and I swore to myself that I would never use again, because the effort that she put in to show me kindness, I wasn't going to let that go to waste. And even if she wasn't around anymore, I wasn't going to disappoint her.
Wow, that's incredible. And it shows what a huge impact it can be on somebody else when you show those consistent acts of true kindness. And I hear Jean give her introduction about how she's a property manager. How many property managers go above and beyond like that? She's so much more than that.
And the whole thing that I want people to know is that when I was younger, there was a phrase I always heard, but I never believed it. And it says, one person's kindness can change the world. And what I want people to know is just be kind to someone, even though they might be rotten or something. Just one time that you can be kind to them, it could save their life. Because literally, Jean saved my life. And Ann's kindness, she saved my life too. And so just the kindness of these people completely changed my life after 40 years.
My name is Annie Hill. I'm here today with Jean and Dallas.
Well, I'm glad we got that sorted out, because I think it's a really powerful to have that, have Dallas share his story. And it's the best way that we could think of how our partnerships and how this work that we all do in our community really makes an impact, not on just our community and money saved and all those things that we talked about today, but on a person level. Just shows the power of it. So at this time, we would like to invite anybody who has questions for us. Open it up.
I don't have a question. I just want to say that was a really great presentation. Thank you.
Yeah.
Chuck,
I
did you have a
agree.
question?
I
Yes,
agree with, excuse me, I didn't mean to interrupt. I just wanted to say I agree with Betsy. I'm Jody Hartman with High Plains Housing. And as you all know, we're getting ready to build our own permanent supportive housing project over here in Greeley. And I can't tell you how inspirational Daniel and Brenna and Michelle, everyone at Housing Catalyst have been. And we plan to really continue to pick your brains and model a lot of what we're going to do after what you're doing. So thank you for sharing this, you guys. It's very helpful.
My name is Chuck Hubbard. I'm with Together Colorado. We are building here in Loveland, the St. Valentine's apartment, permanent supportive housing facility. And I'm wondering about whether our police have done any consulting with them regarding design features that would be helpful. And I was hoping that you might be able to identify a couple of design features that police might be attuned to that the rest of us might not be aware of. I thought that was a very interesting comment that was made early in the presentation.
So we have one of our officers, well, I think there's a couple of them that have advanced CEPTED, it's called Community Policing Through Environmental Design. We've actually connected those officers to the Denver Rescue Mission staff as they move forward and hopefully build the 24/7 shelter. But they were a really big part in Redtail and Mason, and implementing like proper lighting, like how do you have the layout of the sidewalk, like what kind of foliage and shrubs, the open floor plan, all those things that lend to a safer environment and reduce criminal activity. So Chuck, I think that's awesome that you guys are doing that in Loveland. I can get you in touch with somebody from the police department if that would be helpful. or our officer here that has advanced CPTED training.
Thank you so much, Annie.
Well,
Okay.
thank you. If there's no other questions, we appreciate the opportunity to present to you, and we're so grateful for our partnership with the police services.
Yeah, thank you guys for allowing us the time to talk about this, and we appreciate you all.
Okay, we'll kick it back to Christine. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you all again. It was a great presentation. We really appreciate you taking the time to join us today and do that, since we're all very busy. I will go ahead and open up the floor for any updates. Feel free to just come off mute or put them in the chat. We'd love to just get some updates from different agencies about what's going on.
Chuck, I see your hand up. Do you want to go first and then I'll go after you, or is your hand up?
I would. Yeah, I do have a question about an update. Does anybody have any information on what's happening with providing housing for unaccompanied homeless youth in the Fort Collins and Loveland school districts? I guess that's Poudre and whatever the river's name is, Greater Thompson School District. Does anybody have any update on that? I haven't heard anything in a while about it.
And I will say, I don't know if anyone has an update. So this is Kippy with the Colorado Rural Collaborative. We still are your FISB funded RHY provider. We do have both Basic Center Street Outreach and TLP work available in your community, plus the DOH host homes. Our site leads for that are Shiloh House. I think Gia is on here from Shiloh House, and then also Mark Fortney with Centennial BOCES. So I do know that we do have resources. I haven't heard anything more about the development either, Chuck. So I'll pause to see if anyone has that. And then if not, I'll do my couple brief updates just so you kind of know what's going on in the world of youth homelessness. All right, so here's my couple updates. So I think last time we met, and I'm sorry I haven't been really involved, the Balance of State CoC was awarded the Youth HUD Demonstration Project. We have submitted our CCP. We are working to implement close to projects across Balance of State in the value of, we have about a $2.9 million grant that received. I am going to put our final CCP in the chat so you guys can look at that. Our understanding is from HUD, there will be one more YHDP application. We believe that round, if it follows suit, that application will come out sometime next April. I would just say if you are interested or want help, of course, we are very eager to support you. And related to that, Youth Move Colorado is the Balance of State Youth Advisory Board or Action Board. We do have young people serving in your counties. We have young people there as part of our VISTA program. So if you all would like to stand up, that's one of the requirements for anyone who's going to step into the youth space under HUD's guidelines. We're happy to partner with that and support you in that and let you do anything. HUD has encouraged us to reach out to all the COCs in Colorado and make our time available. If there are questions about YHDP, we can tell you about it. It's a ton of work, but it's definitely really an important thing. So two things related to that. Balance of State COCs, collaborative applicant or lead, is shifting from, and I think most people know this, is shifting from the Colorado Coalition for the Homeless to Division of Housing. That transition will happen September 1. Super important in the youth space because our YHTP grant will be falling under the Division of Housing's Office of Homeless Youth Services. And to that point, we'll be working through them and with other partners around seeing if there are things within our plan, because we cover 54 counties, that people might want to join. So want to put an offer out if you would like a presentation on that. I'm happy to bring Brittany along and we can talk about YHDP and kind of the effort of moving forward. The second thing is Youth Move Colorado will be coordinating, as they have in the past, youth homeless awareness activities for the month of November. And we will be doing, again, our art project and a few other things. So if there are people in this group that want to be part of the state's effort for Homeless Awareness Month, just let me know. I'll put my email in the chat so you guys can learn about it. Last thing, the Rural Collaborative will be applying for the FISBE grant for a strategic system to prevent homelessness for those under 22. That's a grant that will bring about $1 million into the state. It's very competitive, but just want to let you know we will be applying. I think we are the only group putting in an application for the state of Colorado. If those resources come in, again, that's another opportunity for us to collaborate on creating a prevention system for young people who are at risk of currently homeless. So that's updates from the youth world.
Nancy, do you have? Yeah.
Yeah. Hi, Christine. I wanted to let everybody know that the Greeley Family House was awarded a very small grant for homeless prevention funds for the families in Weld County. If you have anyone who has received a notice of potential eviction and they need to decide whether or not, if they are seeking for rental assistance to stay within the property, please have them call our main line and ask for Teddy. And we will be able to we'll see if we can screen them and see what's going on. It is application based. And as I said, it's not a huge amount of money, but we do have it.
Thank you for that update, Nancy. Anyone else with updates within CoC?
Yes, this is Joe Starr with Catholic Charities. I've got some exciting news. We have got a new operations manager in our Weld County office, Brittany Gandy, who's on the call right now. She comes from our Larimer County agency. She's very familiar with the work we do and the population that we serve. And it's going to make a huge impact, and super excited to have her in this role on our team.
Thank you for that update as well. Anyone else? I see MJ put information on overdose aware. There you go. Yes. We have both English and Spanish flyers available. Make sure to link those as well.
Hi, it's Jody Hartman with High Plains Housing again. It's just so a huge win for Weld County and actually the whole CoC. We were awarded a 9% low-income housing tax credit award by CHAFA the end of May. And so really what this means, and this is what I tell people often, is that it was the Willy Wonka golden ticket of affordable housing. So basically what this means is that we can now move forward on building the Star Rise apartments planned for a groundbreaking and construction in June of 2024. Hoping to have residents living in those apartments by September of 2025. So these are 58 units of permanent supportive housing that will be following the Housing First model, as well as we've incorporated the trauma-informed design into our entire design process. And Volunteers of America, in fact, Betsy Sullivan will be leading the lead service provider role at the property. So we are now in the process of just working through all of the fundraising and pre-development activities that need to happen, but we're very excited for Northern Colorado that we'll be able to add another 58 units of permanent supportive housing here in just a couple years. It sounds like a long way off, but I know it'll go quickly. So just want to make sure the entire CoC was aware this is happening.
Thank you, Jody. Any other updates?
Didn't bring this up, but I will let you guys know the Colorado Rural Collaborative was awarded a grant from CDE, and it's similar to what the dollars are for McKinney-Vento, although our dollars are to really identify families who have school-age children who might be currently experiencing homelessness, or young people, unaccompanied minors, or young people who are at risk of dropping out. And to support in 3 ways. So one of the ways is to provide some events and awareness to help young people or families prepare and enroll students in schools. So if any of your organizations want to do something to get clients that you're serving backpacks and school supplies, or host an event to help them know about getting back in school, please let me know. We also have dollars that if you have both families or young people that this fits with, we can provide a handful of nights of hotel housing to kind of get them stable, or things that family or that youth needs to get prepared to re-enter school. So if anybody has students or wants to do any of that stuff, you can email me, and I'll put my my email in the chat, but you can email me, and we're basically getting these dollars out to agencies and community partners through little mini grants. So just kind of let us know, and then we can help you get connected to that. So our job is we know students are out there that aren't going to school. Schools have limited things we can do. Our dollars help you do a lot of work to get a young person or a family with children ready for their students to go back to school. So please reach out.
Thank you, Kippy. Anyone else?
Christine, I'll just share out loud what I dropped in the chat. I put it in the chat so you could have a record of it later, but there are quite a few community opportunities coming up for the region. The gator closest to the boat would be Overdose Awareness Day. Those events are happening August 26th and August 27th. There are events in Fort Collins, Greeley, Estes, and Loveland. Fort Collins is in Old Town Square from 12 to 2 on the 26th. Greeley is at Lincoln Park on the 26th from 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. Estes, the event is at the Stanley Park Osprey Pavilion on the 27th from 10 a.m. to noon. And in Loveland, the Foundry Plaza Square on August 27th from 3 p.m. to 5, we have events there as well. Those look like resource navigation, resource booths. If you're interested in having a resource booth, you can definitely still sign up. I will drop the link for that in the chat as well. Overdose prevention, education, naloxone distribution, art and memorial spaces for folks to engage in, music, food, the works in all 4 of those event spaces. We are doing AccuDetox, yoga, and massage in those spaces as well, so folks can learn how to care for themselves given the impact that overdose has had on our community. Additionally, so that's community-based events. Those are open to all. We have a provider-specific professional development opportunity on October 3rd. That is an all-day conference called Rethinking Addiction and Recovery. That is for providers across sectors. And so you could be a social worker, you could be a doc, you could be someone in the criminal justice system. All are welcome. So please register. Those tickets are going fast. They've only been open for a couple of days now, and we've already got 175 registrations. And so please get your ticket today. Feel free to send that link out to others. We've got a massive lineup of speakers. I think it's going to be a really, really cool event this year. And we'd love to have you join us. And so stay tuned. The website and speakers will be published shortly, but promise to wow you all.
Thank you, MJ. Okay. Last call for updates. Anything else people want to share? Or any questions about what's been shared so far?
I'd like to jump in. Hello, everyone. I'm Malia. I'm with Larimer County. I just wanted to, you may not work with clients in this AMI range, but Larimer County is supporting the Kechter Townhomes project along with City of Fort Collins and Elevations Community Land Trust. And I met with them recently and they said they're kind of slow going and getting people to apply for these townhomes. It's a really great opportunity. If you work with any families, if you know any friends or family, these townhomes are going to be targeted towards households that are around 70% AMI to 80% AMI. They're 2 to 3 bedroom homes. The mortgage is going to be below 30% of the household income. So it's just a really, really great opportunity. Applications are open now. So anyone you can think of that may want to take advantage of this, I can drop the link in the chat. Just go there, fill out an application. They also help the families apply for down payment assistance as well to help with the purchase of the homes. I believe the first part of the construction is going to be done in September. So applying now is not too early. And with the extremely high interest rates we're seeing for home ownership right now, this is an opportunity for people. And the sale price of these homes are actually going to be lowered because of those higher interest rates. So it's actually a really great time to buy through this program. So I'll share that in the chat if anybody wants to share it.
Thank you, Aaliyah. Any other updates? Well, I'm just going to give one final reminder that the next CoC sponsored training is on August 17th. It is in person in Greeley from 2 to 5 p.m. It's a Housing First implementation training. So please register for that if you are interested. It's targeted towards providers especially. And then our next general membership meeting will be held on September 21st. We will get the slides and notes out to everyone shortly, but thank you all for participating today. And I hope you enjoy the rest of your Thursday. Thank you.